This is Jay Martin.
All right, welcome back. I'm joined right now once again by Pete Dembicki, the CEO of Tier 1 Silver. Pete, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. Okay, now a couple directions I want to go here. Let's start. I want to pull on your experience during your time at Canaccord Genuity. That's where you and I connected originally, maybe a decade or so ago, because the number one question we're getting from subscribers right now, Pete, on the channel is if all the macro forces that have historically led to a bullish gold market exist today, how come we're not seeing that bullish gold market? And the significance of that is that, as we know, historically, when gold starts to move, silver has that slingshot effect, right? But being patient's the hardest part. And so I'm curious, because I know you've had to counsel investors through this process hundreds of times, and now as the CEO of Tier 1 Silver, you're probably doing it yourself. So how do you manage that patience, and how do you advise investors manage that patience?
Yeah, great question. You have your checklist of things that need to be checked off in order for an investment to work out. If it's an equity, regardless of the sector, obviously the bet's on people to start. Has management successfully started a company, created a business, an operating business, or in mining exploration, made that discovery, and do they know how to package it up and sell it for a significant return for shareholders? So that's the number one bet is people. And obviously with my company at Tier 1, people is a huge check mark because of our founders, Ivan Bevic, Sean Wallace, what they've done in the past, our technical team, what they've discovered in the past, Christian Rios with Bear Creek. He is the man in terms of making silver discoveries. And then myself with the capital markets background. So knowing how to also run a public company is different. So when you're looking at this and you have your checklist and then you have your asset and then you have, the macro factors that you don't have a lot of control over, but like you said, it is about waiting. And if all these things are checked off, then you have to be patient. You have to have conviction that you have a good company on your hands here and you're going to see it through. And there'll be opportunities when the share price goes down and, it plays with your psyche. Has anything changed with the actual underlying business of the company? Or is this just the market's doing what they're doing? And, it's important to make that distinction because you can pull up any junior mining exploration company right now and see that there's a deal to be had. But what company has all those check boxes, marked off, and what's going to perform really well when the commodity does start really performing with tailwinds? And so speaking to silver, this thing does outperform every other asset class when these things get rolling. We've seen it time and time again. I believe in 7 of the last 8 major bull runs for gold, silver's outperformed by a large margin. And it just has that power. We saw it last summer when Tier 1 Silver listed. We came out of the gates even before we even drilled, and that movement, that need for that torque that silver provides, launched us into a incredibly high market cap at the time. Probably got ahead of ourselves, but it just shows that when it's on, it works, and the whole world knows it. So again, when you're looking at the price of silver and your boxes are checked, inflation and dilution of currency and the actual underlying industrial need for silver. Whether it be solar or electronics or whatever it be, jewelry, investment purposes, it's all checked off. Now we just need some few slight, helps from the market to really get it going. But I think I always use the analogy or try to of pulling back that string on a bow and arrow, and it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And when it's time to go, it'll launch, it'll rip. And we've seen it happen before, and I think we're in a great setup for it to happen again. In the meantime, in the background, we're taking care of our company and setting that stage for when it does, because Tier 1's going to definitely go along for the ride.
And there's nothing more frustrating than the market ripping like that and you feeling like, this is probably inevitable whenever that occurs, because it happens so fast. I remember back to 2020, we were talking about this before I hit record, how quickly that gold market took off. And I'm sure every single gold investor in that moment felt like they were underweight, right? Like it's just inevitable. I think that's probably human nature, because when it moves, it does move fast. And so I love the box ticking, because you're right. Like if you've developed your rules, and making rules is the easy part, following them is the hard part. But if you can follow your rules too, then you can sit in your positions with conviction when things take longer than you think they should, which is kind of a fallacy because the market will move when the market moves, and whatever you think doesn't matter so much. But being comfortable with the people, and I'm similar, and as are my viewers, we're very people driven. I think you should be in this market. Then you can sit on the people and have confidence that, when the tailwind exists, they've done the right things, right? They've been hard at work in a depressed market, and now they're ready to capitalize on the tailwind. You touched on there's a handful of supporting factors for the silver narrative right now. It's a monetary metal. It's a luxury metal in the jewelry market. It's obviously a massive industrial metal. And I'm wondering more and more if silver is trending further towards the industrial demand use case or sticking with the historic monetary use case. And everybody can look at the industrial narrative right now and say, this is crazy. Like, things are really picking up, and you could forecast the demand depending on who you listen to, whether, conservative forecast from the Silver Institute or very audacious forecast from people like Chen Lin, and say that's what's going to move the price. But, I'm curious about the monetary angle. Do you, when you're talking to your shareholders today, Pete, do you see one or the other, the monetary use case or the industrial use case, captivating more people's attention?
You see both, and that's the greatest part about silver. I call it the perfect commodity because, it has all the same characteristics of gold for safe storage of investment and hedge against inflation and protection against dilution of currencies, but it also has all the use cases of copper. But copper doesn't have that, sexiness to it. It does when you're making a ton of money off of it. Nothing wrong with that. But as far as in the junior mining sector, it doesn't have that torquey nature to it. So when I deal with both sides of it all, because we all know how much silver can move in the market when it's on. As far as industrial use, I think we're only just beginning to see a great shortfall in supply. Based on the last previous years, they're forecasting for the first time that demand will outstrip supply, and now we're talking about all the new cases for silver that'll be needed with double-sided solar panels. That'll increase, I believe, the demand for silver just on solar panels alone over the next couple of years by about 115 million ounces. And that puts it into a short supply industrial. And that's not counting the future demand for EV cars and, other solar projects, electronics, and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I love silver. There's both cases for it. We're in a perfect setup on a macro economic level as far as, what's happening with currencies and interest rates, and then on the industrial side as well. So it's just about timing, and when it happens, it'll happen fast. And like you said, you'll have a bit of FOMO, wishing that you loaded up in this time on these great companies that have the leverage to silver. And we even last summer, if you recall, when we listed, there was a big trend going on. A lot of companies were gold companies or copper companies, but adding silver to their name to catch that wave. Gold and have that those extreme high grades of silver when we started off this company, and now following it up and making that discovery is really big for us.
You know what I think is going to be a major catalyst for the silver market, and also for a very select few rare earths, is people often talk about the renewable energy sector and the benefits of it and the demand on metals it will create, but then they say, but it's not baseload, and that's the big problem. And that's just an innovation problem, though, right? And the amount of money flooding the battery market right now is it's hard to fathom domestically and internationally. So that problem will be solved. And when the storage issue is solved, and it's an innovation problem, and we're really good at solving that when you throw money at things, all these renewable sources will become baseload equivalent. It's inevitable and probably going to happen sooner than we think. And when that occurs, I think that's just going to be a massive catalyst for the renewable energy build out and the metals that it puts demand on. I'm curious to see how that pans out. Okay, let's jump into tier one. In case anyone hasn't heard the story, can you give us the 30,000 foot overview, Pete? Talk to me about tier one.
Sure thing. So when it's such an exciting story, I get really animated when I tell the story because I love it so much, and I fall in love with these projects. But when we started out, we sent our geologists, our team out before Tier 1 listed as a separate public company entity, and they scanned the entire coastline of Peru looking for the #1 precious metals hit in this fantastic country. Peru is such a mineral-rich country, one of the largest producers of silver in the world, the largest reserves of silver in the world, home to some of the largest copper producers that we know of that are also big silver producers as the byproduct. So when we sent them out to scan, our number one target came back at Curibaya. But the ironic part of this was it landed us on this prolific copper porphyry belt where we have 5 of the largest copper producers in Peru, all within 100 kilometers to our northwest. And they start up again in northern Chile. So we're in this kind of gap where people have been looking for that next copper project. And here we are with this precious metals indication. So we take that next step. We do some exploring, first pass doing rock and chip samples, and we get grades coming back that no one has ever seen in the sector, as far as I'm aware. Rock samples up to 300,000 grams per ton silver, up to a kilo in gold, 75 plus samples over bonanza grade silver and 2.5 grams gold. So this grade was just eye popping. And so now we had to figure out, what is happening here on this copper belt? What have we discovered? We take the next step. We did channel samples and trenching to kind of verify it. And sure enough, we did 12 kilos, 8 kilos, 6 kilos, bonanza grade everywhere. So now we have some targets. Let's go through our first drill program, which we commenced last summer. We ended it up just in December. And within our first pass, in our first 6 holes, we got our first bonanza grade, followed up with a couple economic grade intercepts. And on our last hole of the campaign, hole number 16, got our best intercept of 1.5 meters of 1.2 kilos silver. So yeah, we verified that grade, is subsurface now. It's not just a surface anomaly. We know we have this precious metal system. We hired 2 to come down and do a site visit with our technical team, and both of them independently came back and said, you guys are on the right track. You ended your program with your best intercept. As you go north on your property up to your Curibaya zone, which we have our new permit at the moment to drill that area out, you're going to have 500 more meters of preserved precious metals is where you're going to get your bigger widths, because we have the grades. We just need to put it over, 5 to 10 meters instead of, 1.5 meters. And that's the goal. That's what took, Vizsla Silver from a 30-cent stock to where it is today. And that's, of course, companies like Filo Mining that have been around and been drilling for a long time, and only recently have just made those, crazy bonanza grade hits. And that's what moves this thing into that next category. But both consultants came back at the same time and said, the silver story's there. You guys have the full system. And as Christian Rios, who's been in Peru his entire life and made several silver discoveries for Bear Creek, said, we have the only full system here. We have the only copper porphyry potential and silver system all in one. And to have that copper story coming in behind the silver, which is still our dominant target on this property, it's a geologist's dream, and it's the full system, as he says. So the grades are unreal, and we just can't wait to get drilling and tag some of these in a bigger width and really put the world on notice with our silver here.
Well, I think and as you mentioned, hole 16 that you guys put out end of last year, put a lot of the market on notice. So talk to me about upcoming work, Pete. Like, when can we expect more news flow and results from Tier 1?
Yeah, so I think all of your listeners are completely aware. The markets are very tentative. Everyone's looking for direction. When's this thing going to turn? And what's going to be work when it does? Is it going to be big tech? Is it going to be utilities, or are we going to get this commodities rally that everyone's really hoping to see and think should happen? So when we went out and did our last raise, we had a mandate to be very, very prudent with our cash spend, because we were totally aware of what the markets were doing. So we set out and really wanted to get a lot of targets in hand at Curibaya and developing our Hurricane Silver project in the background as well, because we wanted to make sure when we do bring the drill to the program, we have 20 robust targets to go after, and we're not just throwing a drill anywhere. So again, that first drill pass was huge for us. It gave us some guidance on where to go. As a reminder, our top channel samples, our top rock samples came from this Curibaya corridor that we haven't drilled out yet, but now we have the permit to do so. It will be our number one target. So right now we're formulating the drill program in the background, putting our key targets in place. We still have channel samples trickling in from the lab to really guide us on where we're going in this corridor, and hopefully in the next few months we can bring that drill to site and get it going. But I can't wait to start drilling. So we know that's priority for shareholders.
And yeah, I know you guys completed a raise in the spring, and congrats. It speaks to the relationships that you have that you're able to finance in, as every market in the world was in free fall, back to investing in the right people. People with good reputations can do that. I guess if you're going to go back to the market to expand the program, are you going to wait for results to come back first and then determine where you're going next?
Yeah, it's a huge, guiding light for us as far as our drill program. So again, we're going to, we have the money in the treasury now to commence drilling. So we could start tomorrow if we wanted to with the targets we have in hand. But we have some really good indication. We got some good things coming from this Curibaya corridor and the channel samples, and also sampling we've done where we previously drilled that we want to revisit, where we had some great intercepts as well, and really follow to the source. So yeah, that's the stage that we're at. And again, being very methodical, being very prudent with cash spend, because we want to make sure we're cutting, measuring 3 times and cutting once, to be, really focused on what we got to do here.
Can you I'd love you to revisit your management team a little bit, your executive team, your founding partners, your chief geologist, recapping that for anyone who's just tuned in for the first time to Tier 1.
Sure. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, the bet on people. I had a great career as an investment advisor in Canaccord, and when Ivan Bebic and Sean Wallace, my co-founders, approached me and said, "Peter, we need someone to lead Tier 1, and you're the great candidate for it." For me, it was moving to people. It was a bet on people for myself, my family, and I have 2 young kids at home, so it wasn't a light decision, but it was an easy one because I know the reputation and the capabilities we have in the markets, and I love being in the role that I'm at. And so when I took on the project, to have Ivan and Sean there as mentors in the space, and great synergy between our team, and again, Tier 1 was a spin out of former parent company Auryn Resources. So to have a lot of legacy shareholders that were following Auryn quite closely, that were very, very high on the Tier 1 prospects when Auryn was still a company, to be able to inherit those shareholders, they were fantastic. And then throughout the course of the year, we had our SVP of exploration, Dave Smithson, conducting the first drill program and early exploration, did a fantastic job, retired from the industry to be with his family. It's a very intense job when you're living at the drill bit, for sure. But what we did have in the background, it's almost like having Michael Jordan sitting on your bench, was Christian Rios. This is a guy that's a Peruvian, which goes a long way when you're operating in Peru. But he was the SVP of exploration for Bear Creek Mining and was integral in their 3 separate silver discoveries. So if there's anyone who knows how to go out and find the silver, it's Christian. And to bring him on, having him able to overview the past drill program, future exploration, and how he knows how he's going to go tag this thing, it's so awesome. And as we said, I'm live at a Beaver Creek conference right now, and he's a rock star, and everyone knows his credibility. So from leadership, with our founders, from a technical standpoint with Christian, my capital markets background, my connections to retail, we have the people checked off for sure. I don't know of any other exploration company that has that kind of firepower behind it.
I love it. Pete. All right. Thanks so much for coming back on. I appreciate your time. Best of luck down there, and I look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. It should be a fun next few weeks for the company.
All right, thank you for watching this interview. Now, 3 things before I let you go. Number 1, I publish a weekly newsletter and I love writing it. I share my biggest takeaways and action items from the conversations that I have on this channel. In addition, my thoughts on current events, economic events, political events, and you can subscribe for free. Just hit the pinned comment right beneath this video, or just go to jmartin.club and you can subscribe on the website. I'd love to have you join the team. Number 2, ad revenue from this channel is donated to an organization that is super close to my heart called Zero Ceiling. Now, Zero Ceiling's mission is to end youth homelessness, and the way they do this is by giving at-risk urban youth the opportunity to relocate to beautiful wilderness areas and then provide them with supportive housing, career training, and just generally positive influences on their life. I love what they do. Check them out if you're interested. And number 3, if you prefer to listen to my content as opposed to watch it, you can find me wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search for The Jay Martin Show. All right, thanks again.